present on today's platform, and allow me to extend season's greetings to all our delegates, speaker of the day, our chief guest, and our host on behalf of KPC Medical College and Hospital. Before I go any further, I would like to quickly introduce KPC Medical College and Hospital to our delegates from the other corners of India. KPC Medical College and Hospital has started under the able guidance of Dr. K.P. Chaudhary, an eminent orthopedician, the chairman of American Orthopedic Association, and also an eminent Bengali entrepreneur. KPC Medical College is a 800-bedded teaching institute which offers both undergraduate and postgraduate courses in the medical sciences, and it is also the nodal study center for Masters in Dietetics and Food Service Management under IGNOU. Today, KPC Medical College and Hospital has the pleasure of hosting Professor Dr. Diksha Kapoor, eminent nutritional scientist, to deliver a discourse on food security status of India. As today's chief guest, we have with us Mrs. Krishna Das, who is the Secretary of KPC Medical College and Hospital and the Director of KPC School of Nutrition. Today's host is none other than Dr. Professor Bhadra, eminent radiologist and the principal of KPC Medical College and Hospital. Sir, I hand over the question to you for further extension.
Thank you very much for your nice words. Good evening, everybody. So, let me start with my introductory this letter what to. So, India has made rapid strides in improving rates of under and malnutrition. And between 2006 and 2016, stunting in children below 5 years declined from 48% to 38%. Yet, India continues to have one of the world's highest child undernutrition rates, impacting the child's health and development, performance in school, and productivity in adult life. The challenge with nearly 195 million undernourished people, India shares a quarter of the global hunger burden. Nearly 47 million, or 4 out of 10 children in India, are not meeting their full human potential because of chronic undernutrition or stunting. Stunting has consequences such as diminished learning capacity, poor school performance, reduced earnings, and increased risks of chronic diseases. The impacts are multi-generational as nourished girls and women often give birth to low birth weight infants. There has also been an increase in prevalence of overweight and obesity in children and adolescents in India, which has lifelong consequences of non-communicable diseases in adulthood. The government has large food security and anti-poverty programs, but there are critical gaps in terms of inclusion and exclusion errors. Women and girls are particularly disadvantaged. Despite the achievement of national food self-sufficiency, new challenges have emerged, slowing agriculture growth, climatic changes, land degradation, and shrinking biodiversity. Large tracts of farmlands in India have become barren due to imbalanced fertilizer use and excessive use of a single fertilizer urea. Government of India programs and initiatives with a five-fold increase in food grain production from 50 million tons in 1950 to 51 to about 250 million tons in 2014-2015. India has moved away from dependence on food aid to become a net food exporter. In 2016, the government launched a number of programs to double farmers' incomes by 2022. These seek to remove bottleneck for greater agricultural productivity, especially in rain-fed areas. They include the National Food Security Mission, Rashtriya Krishi Vikas Yojana, the integrated schemes on oilseeds, pulses, palm oil and maize, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, the marketplace as well as massive irrigation and soil and water harvesting programs to increase the country's gross irrigated area from 90 million hectares to 103 million hectares by 2017. The government has also taken significant steps to combat under and malnutrition over the past 2 decades, such as through the introduction of midday meals at school, Anganwadi systems to provide rations to pregnant and lactating mothers, and subsidized grain for those living below the poverty line through a public distribution system. The National Food Security Act NFSA 2013 aims to ensure food and nutrition security for the most vulnerable through the associated schemes and programs, making access to food a legal right. United Nations support to address the linked nutrition and livelihood challenges in India and to ensure the vulnerable groups are not left behind. The United Nations Priority Group partners with the government to scale up nutrition services and improve feeding and caring practices in the home. It assists government efforts to increase the efficiency and effectiveness of the safety nets under the NFSA. The work towards increasing farm incomes for the group provides support the strengthening of agriculture on advocating for a national food fortification policy. Led by the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, the priority groups members include the Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, International Fund and Agricultural Development, IFAD, International Labour Organization, ILO, International Organization for Migration, IOM, United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and the Empowerment of Women, United Nations Women, United Nations Development Program, UNDP, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, and the World Food Program. This is a brief description of our program, and the rest will be deliberately told by our guest and the guest speaker. So let me conclude here and conclude my lecture here. And I'm just again thanking you, the organizers, for organizing such an excellent webinar. And I'm happy that our institution, KTC Medical College and Hospital, is honored again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I would now like to ask Mrs. Krishna Das to welcome our chief guest and give us a short introductory speech. Mrs. Krishna Das, ma'am.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Krishna Das, Secretary KBC Medical College and Hospital. On behalf of KBC Medical College, it's my proud privilege to welcome Professor Diksha Kapoor, Professor and Nutritionist of the discipline of Nutritional Sciences. Madam, heartiest welcome to you. Professor Ashok Bhadra, Principal of National KBC Medical College, Dr. Ranjini Datta, HOD of the KBC School of Nutrition, Ankita Sengupta, in charge of community of the KBC School of Nutrition, Community Nutrition, and all the viewers, my warm welcome to you all. Today's topic that the national food security. Actually, literally and in the ordinary language, we consider a household is considered food secure when the occupants did not have any hunger. But food security is much more than that. The World Health Summit that was held in Rome in 1996 defined food security when all the people for all the time had access to sufficient, safe, and nutritious food for the maintenance of healthy and active life. India's effort to achieve food security, we must trace back to the problem of inappropriate production, less production of food during the colonial rule, to the challenges of, after that, to the challenges of growing more food, to the procurement of food, distribution, challenges of distribution of food, challenges of storage of food, challenges of preservation of food, and to the challenges of achievement of getting more or less self-sufficiency in the food to make security one. The National Food Security Act, the establishment of public distribution system, and especially its evolution to the targeted public distribution system and food and agricultural organizations are the main task forces for making food secure. Use of better technology and use of better management and continuous effort to control losses and leakages for producing more food and make it available to the people who need more is going on. But food security is linked with host of other factors such as socio-economic development, political ramification, climate change, drought, flood, diseases, and so on. The most latest example is COVID-19. The coronavirus pandemic has sparked not only on the health but also on economic crisis. This has as biggest pressure on food security in the form of lockdown, economic decline. These and that and these and other things will always be there. Something or other is always there. In the face of all these challenges, our country, our government, the aim of our country and the aim of our government is to make India secure in food by growing more food and by making available to those who need more. Our present agricultural production situation may look more or less comfortable, but coupled with a growing population and changing climate condition, the situation may get more different in near future. So ceaseless efforts are therefore required to improve upon the food security in our country. And now your experts are there, so I hand over it to Professor Diksha Kapoor, and who will enlighten us. I believe she will enlighten us with the recent subject. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Krishna ma'am, Mrs. Krishna Das, for that wonderful introductory note. And before I hand over today's discourse to our keynote speaker, I'll take 1 minute to once again introduce our keynote speaker of the day. KPC Medical College and Hospital today proudly hosts eminent nutritional scientist and professor of nutritional sciences, Professor Dr. Diksha Kapoor, who is the program coordinator for doctorate and master's degree program for nutrition sciences and also various other health and nutrition allied programs under IGNOU and also under Manipal Academy of Higher Education. Other than being the All India head of the Nutritional Sciences program, she is also a certified trainer and a national evaluator of Food Safety and Standards Authority of India. And as I said, we today have the pleasure of having her giving us a discourse on today's topic, food security in India. Over to you, Diksha ma'am.
Thank you, Mrs. Das, Professor Bhadra, Ranjani, Ankita, and dear students. It indeed is a great pleasure to be here today, to be invited for this webinar and to deliver this talk on food, and I emphasize nutrition security in India. Professor Bhadra, thank you so very much for putting this topic in perspective. Your 5-10 minutes you have tried to sum up the food nutrition security. Being a nutritionist, let me tell you right in the beginning, I hope you are not disappointed. I'm not going to talk about food security per se in terms of agricultural production and things. That's not my forte, and I don't even want to enter it. I will focus on nutrition security per se. The food, what we have, and in how it is translated in terms of nutrition security. As a nutrition person, people interested in nutrition, I think will be more concerned with that aspect. So, Professor Bhadra, thank you for putting it into perspective, giving an overall perspective of where we stand when we come or when we are talking about nutritional status of our population. Madam Das, you also have emphasized about food security, and you have made my task a little easy because in my presentation I was not going to cover that aspect. So both of you have given a background to this food security context, and I think now I'm free to talk actually about nutrition security more than the food security per se, which I guess Ranjani had. When I was talking to Ranjani, I said I would like to talk on food nutrition security, but somewhere in the title, I think the nutrition security got away. but I will still stick to that point and bring a perspective of where we stand today when we talk about nutrition security in our country. So give me a minute. Ankita, I will have to again restart my slides, I guess.
Yes, ma'am, you need to present again.
So, do I, okay, let me see. Can people see my slides now?
Not yet, ma'am.
Not yet, no.
Okay, I'll have to share again. Present now. Okay, give me a second, please. Just give me a second. Yes,
Yes, ma'am, your screen is visible.
my screen is visible to everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Not yet, ma'am.
No?
No, ma'am.
No, but I can see it. Ma'am, if you could kindly press F5, if you could kindly maximize it, if you could kindly press F5.
F5.
Yeah, if you could maximize your screen.
Okay, I'm just going to go on the slideshow. Give me a second. Now,
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
can everybody see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, do I start it?
Ma'am, it is not visible here.
No, but it's visible, Lokita. It's visible.
Yes, ma'am. Now it's visible.
Okay, great. So, as I was talking about, my focus is going to be on the nutrition security aspect in India. And we all understand that food is a basic human need, there's no doubt. And this aspect has been recognized way back as early, even the Bhagavad Gita talks about food as being the basic human need. You know, the third discourse talks about anad bhavanti bhutani, which literally translates to from food creatures become. So basically, what we eat, we become. And recognizing this aspect, that food is the first among many basic human needs, the UN Committee on Economic, Social, Cultural Rights has recognized the human right to food. It talks about the fundamental right to freedom from hunger, which Mrs. Das has already talked about, that it is a basic right, that there should be freedom from hunger. It talks about fundamental right to freedom from undernutrition. Understanding these aspects, the UN, way back, over the years, there has been many efforts. We had the Millennium Development Goals earlier. Those now have been converted into the Sustainable Development Goals. In 2015, the United Nations member state adopted the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which talks about universal call to action to end poverty. There are 17 goals under these SDGs, out of which few are directly linked with providing food security, nutrition security to the population groups. Goal 1 talks about no poverty, eradicating poverty in all its forms, and remain one of the greatest challenges facing humanity today. The second goal talks about zero hunger. Extreme hunger and malnutrition remains huge barrier to development, a problem. Food insecurity appears to be increasing in all regions. It is not about just the developing countries. Today, food insecurity, which Mrs. Das and Professor Bhadraj already talked about, the climatic change, the economic condition, the political conditions, all this have led to a food insecure, nutrient insecure environment, and which is now increasing day by day. And the goal on good health and well-being certainly talks about health as an essential sustainable development issue, and health as influenced by the nutrient utilization becomes therefore very important. So when we have these measures put in place, it is important that then we understand what is food security. Already Mrs. Das has defined it for all of us. The food security is talked about at an individual level, household level, national, regional, global level. And it is achieved when all people at all times have physical and economical access to sufficient, safe, nutritious food to meet their dietary needs and food preferences. So what are we talking about here? It is just not the physical availability, access. It is also the economical access, fine, but sufficient, safe, nutritious food. The emphasis is on sufficient, safe, nutritious food. Why? To be able to meet the dietary needs and food preferences for an active life. And from here, therefore, food security is about nutrition security. It is about physical, social, economical, environmental access to balanced diet, to an adequate diet, and also to clean drinking water, as one of the SDGs also talks about this aspect. Providing balanced, nutritious, adequate diet for every child, woman, man, therefore becomes a very important aspect. So from here, if you look at this conceptual framework of food security, there are four components. Let me see if I can highlight. We have availability, we have access. Availability in terms of production, trade, storage, and as I said, it is not my area, not my forte. I don't even want to talk. We know, thankfully, both our Mrs. Das and Professor Batra has already given you a perspective on the available situation in India. Access in terms of income, in terms of prices, we all know influence food intake, which indirectly or directly influences food security. What is our focus as nutritionists? What do we look at is how do we translate that food availability, access in terms of nutrients, in terms of what is being available at an individual, household, national level to be able to translate in terms of meeting the nutrient needs of the population group. Therefore, the use of food based on the nutrition knowledge, awareness, attitudes, behaviors which will influence the uptake of that food also becomes very important when we talk about food security, nutrition security. So, within this conceptual framework, let us then look at the food nutrition security in India. I am trying to give you a perspective of where we stand today when we talk about nutrition security. Are we a nation which is secure when it comes to food? Are we food nutrition secure? Let me give you a perspective. And my presentation is based entirely on the national data available from the last 4 decades till today. So what I present is the national data both for rural, urban area. Whatever data we have is what my presentation is based on. So what does the literature or the international national data tell us about the food security? Well, we have the recent documents to fall back on. 2019, The FAO report on the state of food security and nutrition confirms that no other country comes close to India in terms of the sheer number of people living in chronic hunger. We may have achieved food production to a level where we may be sending it out, exporting it, but the 2019 report clearly states that no other country comes close to people living in chronic hunger. There are estimated 822 million undernourished persons in the world, of which 24% live only in India. And as Mrs. Das already highlighted, now during the pandemic time, this has resulted in collapse of employment. We have a large group of workers from the informal sector who have no social security or job security. Employment and incomes have collapsed. Inevitably, this will affect the food security for these individuals. Well, I don't know, only time will tell, but what is the situation in the last 4 decades? Let us have a review. Let us have a perspective on that aspect. Well, the scale of food and nutrition insecurity in India is huge. How do we know that? Well, there are multiple indicators, range of estimates based on different data sources, which gives us an idea about food nutrition insecurity. And these can be the food intake measures, they are the expenditure indicators, they are anthropometric outcomes. For the country, we have this data, which gives us an idea where do we stand, how insecure we are. And that is what I would like to present to this August gathering, to give a picture of where we stand and what needs to be done, or rather what is being done today to overcome this huge insecure problem, as you will see as I go through it. I would like to emphasize on two aspects. The first measure of food intake and the last on anthropometric outcomes, which gives us a true picture of the food nutrition security in our country. So when I talk about food intake measures, what are we talking about? Here we are talking about the quality of the diet and the affordability of the diet. These two aspects you will see influences the food and nutrition security. When I talk about diet quality, the latest 2020 report on state of food security and nutrition in the world, here they have categorized 3 types of diet today. The first is the basic energy sufficient diet, in which the required calories, taking say a norm of 2300 calories for a 30-year-old woman, which is met by the cheapest food group or energy source, which is cereals. So it talks about a basic energy sufficient diet. It talks about a nutrient adequate diet. In addition to the calories being met, requirement for macro and micronutrients like iron, the micronutrients, vitamin A, and others partly being met. And the third type of diet, it talks about a healthy diet that meets the requirement of the previous diet, but the intake of items from several food groups. That is, allowing for dietary diversity. The diets may be providing you sufficient energy, may be providing you some macronutrients, micronutrients, but are they diversified to be able to meet the nutrient needs? Remember, when we were talking about the definition of food security, we talked about a diet which helps meet the nutrient needs of each and every individual. And that is possible only when you have a diversified diet. No one single food can help meet To help you understand this concept of a healthy diet, I am trying to give you an example of a minimum acceptable diet when we're talking about children say 6 months to 23 months of age. When do I call it it's a healthy diet? It's an acceptable diet. We look at two parameters. One is the minimum dietary diversity and the minimum food frequency. Say a diet we talk about the food pyramid where different food groups are required. So the proportion of children who are receiving food from 4 or more food groups, cereals, pulses, milk, flesh food, vegetables, fruits. So 4 or more food groups when they are included, we say it is a diet which has a minimum dietary diversity. Similarly, when it comes to minimum food frequency, for that child, the proportion of children who receive solid, semi-solid or solid food in addition to breast milk, the number of times, say a 6 to 8 month child getting 2 servings or getting 2 meals in addition to breast milk, and as the child grows, moving on to 3 to 4 servings of semi-solid, solid, soft food is what we talk about minimum food frequency. And that kind of a diet, healthy diet to meet the minimum requirement is required. So, we are talking about diet adequacy. Are the diets consumed by a population adequate, healthy when we are talking about food nutrition security? This is the first aspect I want to highlight. Second is the diet affordability. The report points out that if we were to provide a healthy diet which has diet diversity, which talks about providing enough meal frequencies, cost of a healthy diet is 60 times higher than the cost of a nutrient adequate diet, and almost 5 times the cost of energy sufficient diet. So we are standing at a crossroad. We've talked about the Sustainable Development Goals of no poverty, no hunger. Are we providing our population? Do they have access? Do they have the economical access to be able to afford a diet diversified, meaning having food from all the food groups? These are the questions which we all need to consider and think when we're talking about food and nutrition security, which is important. So, how then do we translate this information in terms of where our population stands today? So that was the backdrop. Having understood the food nutrition concept, now I would like to focus on the time trends in food and dietary intake and nutritional status of women and children. As already highlighted by our host and others, that women and children are the most vulnerable group in any society. So, the food nutrition security, if you really want to check, getting to know the food dietary intakes, nutritional status will give you a good picture of where as a nation we stand today. So, I have gathered some national data for your reference. Here I am presenting the rural data on intake of foodstuffs as percent RDA. This is for children 1 to 3 years and 4 to 6 years. What do these trends show? This is the data for the last 4 decades, starting 1975 to 2012. What is the data showing? The average intake of cereals. Remember, in the quality of the diet, I talked about the first, which is energy sufficient diet. Only calories being provided. Our diets, our data shows the average intake of cereal, which is the cheapest source of energy. Sugar, jaggery, the intake of these have been declining for the last 4 years. From 90, today only 75% of the need for cereals is being met. That is true for both the age groups, 1 to 3 years, 4 to 6 years. So average intake of cereal, millets, sugar, jaggery, all have been declining since the last 4 decades. What about women 18 years and above? The same picture emerges there as well. The intake of cereals, milk and milk products, sugar, jaggery, all have been declining over a period from 96 to 2012. So here is a picture which reflects how secure our population is when we are talking about food and nutrient intake. Is the situation any better in the urban households? Well, the 27th report of the National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau, which presents the data for the urban population, again reflects the same picture. Average intake, if you can see, for cereals, the basic energy sufficient diet which contains cheapest cereal, only 70% is being met even in the urban households. This is the data. Similarly, look at the green leafy vegetables. Look at the data for sugar and jaggery. All are lower than the RDAs. So, when we translate this food intake in terms of nutrients, like the cereals, pulses giving us energy, protein, what is the picture? Again, a very dismal, very poor, status which can be seen for children when the children are growing. That is the age when the need for energy, protein, nutrients like calcium, iron are the most. What is the data showing? Average intake of protein, energy, calcium, iron is decreasing over the years from 75 to 2012. What do we see? The nutrient intakes are decreasing. Similarly for women, the same picture emerges for all nutrients except thiamine and niacin. The requirements are low, have been decreasing. Same is the picture for the urban household. When we look at the nutrient consumption as percent RDAs, the average intake of protein, energy, calcium, iron is low, but look at the vitamin A and riboflavin. Not even 50% of the needs are being met when it comes to nutrient requirements. Now, look at pregnant lactating women. What does the data show? Pregnancy, lactation, we know are the periods of physiological stress. This is the time when the mother is supporting the fetus as well. What is the data showing? The dietary intake is low. Here is the data for the last 4 decades, starting 79 to 2006. The latest National Family Health Survey data for 2015-16 is not included, but if you look at this trend, what do you see? Dietary intake is below the recommended dietary intake. There was some improvement in the energy intake till 90s. Thereafter, a decreasing trend in the food and nutrient intake is being observed. Now, this shows that the women are not having enough food. Their intake is the same as it was before their pregnant status. So here we are talking about a population where the need for sufficient, safe, nutritious food is not being met. What about the infant and young child feeding practices? Well, we've talked about the government of India giving us norms for infant child feeding practices. The child should be put on the breast within 1 hour of birth. Exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. Timely initiation of complementary feeding, continued breastfeeding 1 year, what is the data? Hardly 50% of our children are being put to rest within the first hour of birth. Exclusive breastfeeding is only 58%, and only 53% children are given timely complementary food at 6 months of age. So, the infant and young child feeding practices overall have remained suboptimal in our country. And this data is from the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey for 2016-2018, which has been undertaken. Now, what about diversity and meal frequency among children? I've tried to show it to you for breastfed and non-breastfed children. The yellow lines, orange lines, give you a perspective about breastfed children. What do you notice? The light yellow one is the minimum dietary diversity. What do you notice? It is increasing with age. That means more foods from different food groups are included in the diet of the child as the child grows. But what about the meal frequency? We know that as the child is growing, he needs to be fed more food. He needs, the stomach is small, so they need small, frequent feeds. But what do you look at the meal frequency? The meal frequency is declining age. So this is the picture which is reflecting on the nutrition security, food security when we talk about the young children. Moving further, so this is about the picture, the perspective on what the children are having, what the data is showing. Now, what is the health implication? What is the impact of this inadequate, poor quality diet which you have seen so far? What is the impact? How is it associated with the poor diet quality? This is reflected from the anthropometric measurements. What we see today in our country is a multiple burden of malnutrition. There is undernutrition, reflected by underweight, stunting, wasting. Professor Butler has given us the statistics. He has showed how many children are underweight, how many are stunted, low height for weight. He has talked about the consequences of stunted. Beautifully, he has reflected poor capacity to work, lower intellectual and concentration power. Yes, all linked with stunting, wasting of children, then low birth weight. We are seeing micronutrient deficiencies such as iron deficiency anemia, where more than 50% of children, women, and you will see the data as I present to you, are suffering from these micronutrient deficiencies. Today, vitamin A deficiency, iron deficiency are the major public health problems in our country. And adding to this undernutrition, today we have the dual burden of overweight and obesity. Large population groups are now suffering from overweight and obesity. So let us look at the data to get a complete picture of what we are talking about. Well, another aspect which is alarming today, recent research has shown that undernutrition in early years of life is a major risk factor for obesity, overweight, and other non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, chronic respiratory diseases, cardiovascular diseases, cancer. So today, the food nutrition insecurity has led to a situation of multiple burden of malnutrition, where large part of the money, large part of effort is going in improving the status, in reaching a state where each individual is provided a quality of life. Now, if you look at the undernutrition in children. The data from the National Family Health Survey and the National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau data, which has been available from 75 till the latest 2016. What do you see? Yes, it has been emphasized that there has been a decline in the rates of underweight, stunting, wasting over the years. It has been declining, but even today, look at the wasting, the green bars I would like to emphasize here. Large number of children, even today, are found to be wasted, meaning they have low weight for their height. About 21% just in last 1 decade, there has been an increase in the number of children who are being wasted. And severe wastage, meaning those who are suffering have a severe lower weight for their height, is again increasing. This kind of insecurity or this kind of impact on their health, on their nutritional status, is only possible when there have been inadequate diets. For children, the quality of the diet is poor. Stunting, as already been emphasized, is a reflection of chronic hunger, where the child is not provided enough food for a very long period of time when the heights of the children are being affected. So, there has been an improvement, no doubt. The latest CNNS survey, the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey, which has been recently done on children from birth to 19 years, shows that stunting, wasting, underweight figures have come down, but it is not sufficient. It has come down to 34%, stunting from 38%. Well, we are getting there, but we need to do much more to improve this situation. Look at the mortality rates among children. Well, we can skip this because, as can be seen, that the mortality rate, well, there has been certainly an improvement, maybe because of access to health services, maybe because of the government putting efforts in putting the programs for children in place. What about stunting? This is one thing which I need to really emphasize, which has already been emphasized earlier, that stunting in adolescents, 15 to 19 years, the overall prevalence has increased from 29 to 34% just in the last decade, with girls being more stunted than boys and the incidence being higher in rural areas as compared to urban. And we've already talked about stunting reflecting poor nutrition, chronic undernutrition, meaning deprivation of the food for a very long time. And look at the age group, 15 to 19 years, the adolescent who would be the future mother. These are the rates which have been presented. This is the national data. Similarly, thinness, meaning wasting in this age population, 15 to 19 years, the national data shows that children 15 to 19 years are more thin as compared to women who are of higher age. So undernutrition declines and overnutrition increases with age of the women, but undernutrition levels are higher among young women. The upper data is for thinness and the down is for overweight. So these are the trends which we are seeing when we look at the national data, which reflect the outcome, the health implications of a poor diet. Poor diet just does not mean not getting enough food. It also means not getting the adequate diet, the right kind of diet. They may be getting an energy sufficient diet, but not all the macronutrients or micronutrients. Similarly, look at the anemia trends among children. Even today, about 60% of children are suffering from anemia. This is again from 2006 to 2016 data, and anemia reduction is moderate in children, and anemia remains a public health problem in all age groups. This is for pregnant, non-pregnant, non-lactating women. Look at the data, NFHS data, this is the last 3-decade data. There has been no change, more or less the prevalence, which in NFHS for 2015-16, the prevalence data is almost the same what it was 2 decades back. So we are talking about a population who is deprived of adequate nutritious food, insecure environment, and leading to anemia. And this anemia, as you have seen, it becomes in childhood, it worsens during adolescence in girls, and gets aggravated in pregnancy. And such a woman who is anemic then gives birth to a child who is of low birth weight. And the consequences of low birth weight, we all know. Such a child, first, just looking at the figures, just about 2 decades back, 30% of our children were born low birth weight. The figures have been declining. Today, we have 16% of our children still being born with low birth weight, which means a birth weight less than 2.5 kgs. And this prevalence remains high in girl children whose mothers were adolescent or stunted. And such a child will certainly have very low chance of survival, and if it does survive, then will be anemic, will have all the other problems of lower brain development, lack of concentration, and all aspects linked with it, undernutrition. There will be growth faltering, the child will not have an appropriate weight for age, height for age, and this continues. So, what are the nutrition challenges as we see today, which are reflecting the food and nutrition insecurity? What we see today in our country, 1 in every 2 women are anemic, 1 in every 3 children is stunted, 1 in every 3 children is underweight, and 1 in every 5 child is wasted. When we come to the infant mortality rate, 37 of the 1,000 babies do not live till the age of 1 year. And when we talk about the maternal mortality rate, 167 maternal deaths per lakh live births. This is the statistic. This is the challenge which is reflecting the food nutrition insecurity in our country. This is the undernutrition picture. But as I've already talked about the dual burden, before I go there, so what I talked about were the nutritional challenges. So what we are saying that no level, at every level of the life cycle, an intergenerational cycle of undernutrition process. What do we see? A pregnant mother who is anemic gives birth to a low birth weight baby. This low birth weight child, as I've already said, has a very low chance of survival, and if it survives with inadequate child care, with inadequate infant feeding practices, which we have already seen, this child grows up to be a preschool child with growth faltering, low weight for age, stunting prevalent, wasting prevalent, with peril of neglect, particularly if it is a girl child, inadequate education and learning opportunities, the burden of sibling care thrusted on this girl child. Such a child who is already suffering from growth failure grows up to be an adolescent with low weight, low height, and adding to it the physical stress brought about by early marriage, early childbearing. This leads to, or this individual grows to become an adult who is small for height, stunted, undernourished, and then this whole perpetual cycle of undernourished repeats itself with this mother giving birth to a low birth weight babies. And today, most of our population has got caught in this intergenerational cycle of undernourishment reflected by poor or food and nutrition insecurity in our country. So we need to pause, we need to think where we are and what we need to do. If that was not enough, today newer research is showing that adult diseases actually start in childhood. Today the data shows, this is from the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey data, 1 in 10 school-age children and adolescents are pre-diabetic. 1% of school-age children and adolescents are diabetic. Like that, the story goes on. 5% of adolescents today are found to be hypertensive. And large number of children, 3%, rather 4% of adolescents have high cholesterol. So here we have a picture of what is the outcome of a diet which is not adequate, a population which is being deprived, which is insecure when it is we are talking about food and nutrition security. So I think I will be doing injustice if I do not now present what is being done. Of course, Professor Bhadra has already talked about the Food and Nutrition Security Act has been put in place. Lot of commitment, lot of effort, lot of strategies have been put in place by the government to tackle this undernutrition or the malnutrition problem. And I will not talk about the food security aspects that is already being covered, but those measures which will go a long way in providing nutrition security is the focus. There was a national nutrition policy which was adopted way back in 1993, and the strategy was a multi-sectoral one for eradicating malnutrition and achieving optimum nutrition for all. And within that, the aim was to reduce malnutrition in the country by half by 2080. At that time, 44% of the children were malnourished, and the idea was to reduce it by 50% by 2000. We are in today in 2020, and you can see the figures I have already shown you. Then various short-term, long-term measures were put in place and are in place even today. There are various nutrition intervention programs which have been talked about. Fortification of essential foods. Today we have the Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, which is talking about putting standards for fortification. There is popularization of low-cost nutrition foods, control of micronutrient deficiencies by having nutrient supplementations and other measures. All have been in place. In addition, the long-term strategies of public distribution system, which was modified to a targeted public distribution system to provide food security, ensuring enough food, availability of food by providing 250 kgs of grains per person per year. In addition, improvement in the dietary patterns by promoting production and increasing the per capita availability of nutritionally rich foods. All these strategies, policies have been put in place. Nutrition and health knowledge with special focus on improving the infant feeding practices, nutrition monitoring, surveillance, all these have been put in place. But it is the recent initiatives I need to just focus. I'll stop in a minute, but we need to understand that a lot of effort is being put. There is a Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which was initiated in 2017, where conditional cash transfer is provided to all pregnant and lactating women, rupees 5,000, and a large number of women are being benefited under this program. What is the idea? The idea is to provide enough food for the pregnant mother, make them more food and nutrient secure to be able to have a healthy living life. More recently, even the Prime Minister has come up with this new program called the Poshan Abhiyan, the National Nutrition Mission, which was launched in 2018. And the effort is to intensify the health and nutrition services for the first 1,000 years of life, which starts not when the child is born, but when the mother is pregnant. The first 1,000 days is what this program is wanting to emphasize on, providing enough food, adequate diet to the mother and to the child. So this has to be a Jan Andolan. It cannot function if we take it as small separately. It has to be a multi-sectoral effort towards that endeavor. A Poshan month. Every year, the September month is celebrated as the Poshan Ma or the month. This helps in spreading the awareness on nutrition-related issues, the problems of food nutrition inadequacies, and the effort is to make it as a public movement. In addition, the supplementary nutrition programs is being provided through the various welfare programs. Within that, there has been a revision of norms, the cost norms per beneficiaries, so that good nutritious food is provided to all. So here are some of the measures which I thought we need to emphasize and we need to. I've already gone beyond my time, and I think I would just like to start by also talking about the targets which have been put, because without the targets we will not be able to meet. So what are the targets? By 2022, we are working towards bringing down the undernutrition among children from 36% to about 20%. Prevalence of anemia down from 58% to 19 or 20%. Similarly, among women, prevalence of anemia among women and girls to be reduced to within the 20% or even lower when we talk. Low birth rate, 2 percentage point reduction each year. Child stunting, which is a very important indicator, bring down the prevalence to 25% from 38%. Similarly for underweight and anemia. These are the kind of targets which we have put, and I sincerely hope that we can work towards meeting this target and provide a population with good food nutrition security to have a healthy life and meet the third goal of the Sustainable Development Goal of providing a healthy, well-being life for all the populations. I will stop here and thank you for your patient hearing. And as I said, my focus will be more on the nutrition security per se than the food security. Thank you very much. Ankita, should I
Thank you,
start?
ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And before we go any further, I would like to apologize for the typographical error that happened in the topic heading, and any consequences or inconvenience that has occurred is completely my liability. Having said that, I would like to congratulations from on behalf of KPC to Professor Diksha Kapoor ma'am for giving us such nutrition, and this has been a refreshing webinar where we actually discussed on the problem that really is the practical issue, and probably diabetic or therapeutic nutrition or just concentrating on that will become almost similar to building a castle in the air if we don't address the problems that we discussed right now in detail. Unless and until the Jan Andolan can address that at the very crux of the pyramid, the apex can never be reached. Thank you, ma'am, once again. And now I open the floor for a question and answering session, and I would request Ankita, in charge Committee Nutrition of KPC School of Nutrition, to take us through the session. Ankita, if there are any questions, Diksha Kapoor ma'am would be addressing them now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Is there any questions from our viewers?
Ma'am, somebody named Paulubi Dash has a question about what about the obesity and overweight patients? Sometimes it happens that due to some pseudo food eating habits, this happens. So, in spite of not eating, that she wants to know that in spite of not eating, the person is going overweight. Is this under this scheme or act, or is this a separate problem altogether?
Should I answer, Ranjini?
Ma'am, should I go ahead and answer this question?
Yes, if you want to, but I will just say one word before I give the floor to you. I don't think you can you can get obese, overweight without eating or without food being the center of that problem. So we are actually denying the fact by blaming it on other issues. That yes, in very few, there may be some underlying factor, but food is one major factor. Sedentary lifestyle, physical inactivity is another factor that may lead to this problem. Yes, Ranjini, you can add whatever you want to.
And following as ma'am pointed out very clearly, and I believe you probably were trying to talk about the phantom foods out here. That is probably one of the main problems that we are encountering when we are discussing the nutritional inadequacy in food security. So what you figured from what you wanted to say, if food is actually causing overweight, then probably if you go for an actual dietary record of the person, you'll probably find that there are more phantom foods than what is being actually told to you. And the bottom, it will come down to what ma'am had clearly pointed out in one of her first slides, that one of the diets which are taking us on a wrong road, or which are actually taking us on the wrong turn at the crossroad, is the carbohydrate or the energy only rich diet, which is probably what you were talking about. It is basically the third kind of diet, which is the healthy diet that India needs to adapt today to actually get the nutritional security of food security. Ankita, the next question, please.
The next question is from Bushra Halim. My question is that in today's time, almost majority of girls are suffering from PCOD and thyroidism. So can we reduce that, and what will be the proper diet for, and as it affects pregnancy?
I think it's a little beyond our discussion today. So perhaps what we could do is the person can connect with me, and maybe we could talk about it later. Let us focus on questions which are related to the topic on hand today. Yes?
Sure,
So
ma'am.
maybe my email can be extended and we can have a discussion on this topic later.
Sure, ma'am.
Ankita, I would kindly request you to keep all questions pertaining to the topics, and you could forward Diksha ma'am's email to the people who has queries other than today's
Yeah.
relevant topic.
Okay, ma'am, but the one more question. As anemia is one of the threat for women and children nowadays, then what will we do to provide them a food security to overcome this? The question is from Kajal Agarwal.
Repeat that again. What is the student wanting to know?
Yes, ma'am. As anemia is one of the threat for women and children nowadays, then what will we do to provide them a food security to overcome this?
Yeah. Okay. So since anemia is a major public health problem today, and we know that the measures basically, when we talk about preventing anemia, there are four standard strategies we advocate. First is dietary modification, where dietary diversification, talking about iron-rich foods, more than the iron-rich foods, the inhibitors and the enhancers, which increase the absorption of iron in the diet. These need to be emphasized. Then we talk about supplementation, nutrient supplementation to prevent anemia. We have talked about horticulture interventions, growing foods which are iron-rich foods, and the fourth intervention are the public health, because hookworm infestation is one important, another aspect which leads to anemia. So preventive measures to prevent this needs to be emphasized. So these are the strategies when we are talking about prevention of anemia in any society.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Ritesh Gop. He wants to know what should be our role in nutritional security.
Yes, very important, because each one of us need to be aware where we are. You've got a perspective of where we stand today. So what will be your role? Your role will be to be an aware individual. Know what you need. Once you are aware, to be able to propagate that awareness. Be an effective nutrition and health educator, a nutrition and health, a person who can pass on that message to large population groups. That can be your role. Your role as in advocacy, your role in bringing about a change, being a change agent for the community. These are the roles as a public nutritionist or as a student of nutrition. You can bring about a change, improving the nutritional security or the food security in our country.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, there are no more questions as of yet.
Then thank you, Ankita, very much for helping us through the technical aspects of today's webinar. And I would like to now end today's webinar with the last vote of thanks. Thank you, Professor Diksha Kapoor, for your time. We were privileged to have you on our platform. And now, I would like to thank Mrs. Krishna Das and Professor Ashok Bhatra for taking the time out from their very busy schedule and encourage us be a part of this program. It was wonderful to allow us have such an initiative, and thank you very much, Diksha Kapoor ma'am, Krishna Das ma'am, and Professor Bhatra sir for encouraging and supporting us in our endeavor. Hope we can come back with more such informative sessions again. Have a very good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, the organizers.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Kapoor. Really nice meeting you.
It was a pleasure. It was a pleasure.
Personal meeting only, not on the webinar.
Yeah.
And good to meet you and talk to you is very informative, and we are very happy that you have defended this
It was a
to
pleasure.
enlighten us.
Yes, it was a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Bhatri, for having me and for giving Ranjani this opportunity to focus on this aspect.
Thank you, ma'am and sir. With
Thank
all
you.
your permission, I will end the live streaming now.
Yes, thank you.